Another answer to a comment on a YouTube video in video form. This is Google Maps telling me where the Mar-a-Lago Club is. Zoom out a little, you can see it is at the end of that bridge, just south of the strip that looks a little like an airfield, east of West Palm Beach here. So when it said West Palm Beach somewhere on the screen when I took that screenshot, but Palm Beach anyway. And if we go across, we have roughly the same view, maybe slightly more zoomed out, but this is West Palm Beach, Lake Worth Beach, Palm Springs, Palm Beach International Airport, all the same places. And there is, somewhere on there, that strip of land that looks a little like an airfield. The dark blue colour here is sea level. And we can zoom in and see Mar-a-Lago. There is the distinctive shape of it. We have the bridge across US 98, Florida 80, Southern Boulevard, whatever you want to call it, to the island where it turns north and becomes South Ocean Boulevard. And in that corner of a highway, such a romantic location, there's that curved building, which is ridiculously expensive and nobody else wants it because it costs more to maintain than it's worth. That's the place somebody was asking about. Or will it be underwater? Well, this is 0 meters of sea level rise. As you can see, the blue is in squares. The world is divided into these squares, and they're either shaded in blue or not. As you can also see, down the west side, there's a whole lot of the ocean that isn't shaded in blue because sea level rising 0 meters won't be enough to flood the ocean. Huh? Right, what I think is happening here, you can also see it with the beach on the right, that there's this long strip and then a step and a long strip and a step, and the beach itself and the water closest to the beach are generally not shaded. What I think is happening is that if there is anything detected by the radar satellites showing higher than a certain altitude in that square, then it doesn't get shaded. So if there is a tall building in that square, it won't get shaded in until sea level rise is higher than the roof of that building, I think is how this works. I didn't design the website, so I don't know for sure. There are also a couple of places on this map where you see very large diagonal, not quite square areas that aren't shaded at all no matter what you do, and the far north and south are never shaded, which I think indicates satellite tracks that they never got. Like the satellite got the track whose northeastern edge is the southwestern edge of that square, and it got the track whose southwestern edge is the northeastern edge of that square, but it never went across that, and likewise it went probably going northeast somewhere to the southeast of that square and got as far as its southeastern edge, and it went to the northeast somewhere northwest of that square and got its northwestern edge, but it never went over that square and never mapped it. And far north and south is because the satellites weren't in a polar orbit, they were on an inclined orbit, and they only went so far north, which means you don't get to see Arkhangelsk, Inuvik, Svalbard, Longyearbyen, or Anchorage. I don't know whether you get to see Anchorage, I didn't check. There's a lot of places not shown. However, Mar-a-Lago isn't all that far north or south, and it was mapped. It's that funny shaped building on the right, with the little pond. At 0 meters of sea level rise, it is not flooded. Let me go back to the start, just in case, and zoom in and zoom out, so you can definitely see Mar-a-Lago Beach House, next image, and zoom in and out to make sure the image is updated on the screens. You can definitely see where it is, with that strip of land north of it, and 98 bridge, and the next one, and zoom in and out. You can see US 98 bridge and the strip of land there coming down from the P of Palm Beach. I should hold the microphone out of the way when I say words with the letter P in them, otherwise it goes at you. And there we have 0 sea level rise. The default sea level rise is on this website is 7 meters, which was at least was, probably still is, the prediction for if all the ice on Greenland melts and nothing else, which is a very unlikely scenario. As we can see here, it floods, it eats the bridge, it eats the beach, it eats the west side of the island, it gets up some streets and floods some people's homes. And there, yes, you can see where south of Coniston Road, Southern Boulevard crosses South Olive Avenue. There's nothing there, according to the satellite radar map, more than 1 metre above sea level, so that square gets shaded in blue, but all around it doesn't, because there are tall buildings there or something. It's a bit erratic on this scale. If we go up to the next step, which is 9 metres, you can see, yes, Mar-a-Lago does get flooded. Goodbye, golf course. Goodbye, whatever documents were in that coffin. Also, a lot of other places that are actually registered as homes, not illegally being used as homes while not being taxed as homes because they're registered as something else, also get flooded. Yes. A whole lot of places where people weren't committing very serious offences by illegally holding on to government secret compartmentalised information and top secret stuff and defence information and nuclear secrets and so on and so forth. Apparently you can just declassify stuff by thinking about it and disenfranchise people by thinking about them. Yeah. The next setting is 13 metres. 13 metres is less than 15 metres. Last year's, it's 1 year old already, last September's IPCC report actually said that in the low probability, high impact scenario, the we don't think it's likely but we can't actually rule it out scenario for high emissions, by 2300, meaning by 2299, not by 11 o'clock tonight, sea level could rise 15 metres. So this blue shading, this ain't impossible. Notice there are a couple of places where the satellites picked up on something. Construction crane top or something. And they think that spot, like that pier jutting out in that upper left clear non-shaded bit, something on Ocean Boulevard just is tall enough for that square not to count as flooded. If we zoom out a little, we can zoom out, we can get a whole lot of Florida. Still with Mar-a-Lago, we have West Palm Beach there. But we can also see that that won't be the only area going underwater. South Florida is in fact gone at that level, along with quite a lot of other places up the coasts on both sides. St. Petersburg. Could have sworn that was in Russia. And Melbourne, which I thought was in Australia. But it might be in England. Who's next? Next is west along the coast. From Florida, along the north coast, the Gulf of Mexico, we have New Orleans. Or, you know, with 13 metres of sea level rise, it's more accurate to say we had New Orleans, and Baton Rouge, and Lake Charles, and quite a few other places. Lafayette there, barely readable. Because sea level 13 metres of sea level rise consumes the lot. Further west. Houston, you have a problem. So you have zoom. At this zoom level, you can just make out the individual blue squares. So this is actually as far in as it's useful to zoom. And the fact there are blue squares at all along that stream going up to the northwest suggests the whole thing will back up that far. Likewise the one going to the west. And that means anything that's supposed to drain into those streams, like a road, isn't going to drain. Well, it'll drain, but it just won't drain very well because the place to which it's supposed to drain will be full of water. So it won't take much to flood Houston. Again. And a lot of this is A lot of what's shaded is River Valley and Stream Valley, but there are a lot of roads shaded as well, and bear in mind, if there's a house there that's taller than that, has a roof taller than that, it doesn't get shaded. The water being 2 metres below your roof ridge is a problem. It does not mean you're not flooded. Just having the ridge line of your house above the water level does not make you not flooded. That's still flooded. It still counts. Out of the Gulf of Mexico, across to the west side of Mexico, we get to Mexicali, which in fact disappears underwater as the Gulf of California backs up all the way to turn the Salton Sea into a proper sea and flood Indio. Palm Springs gets to have a beach. And what's that on the west side of that image? Mission Viejo. Anybody heard of it? Here's what's just off the west side of that image. Now that is a whole lot of people's homes and businesses and workplaces, and that's a lot of all sorts of stuff, that is. Up that coast, some of you may have heard of Sacramento. I think it's fairly famous. Apparently it's disappearing into the sea as well at that point, along with Elk Grove, Stockton, Tracy. I think Yuba City's all right, but the land south and west of Yuba City is going underwater. And also Vacaville, Cowtown. Nice. Fairfield will be Fair Swamp, and whatever all of these other places are. Some kind of college campus, I think. Right. Then we have the East Coast. Now, I'm sure I remember somebody mentioning Virginia Beach. Something about marine. Well, it's going to be marine, all right. These little blue aircraft symbols, 3 to the north there and 4 in the south. Those indicate quite a lot of investment in infrastructure, one way or another. All those little white stripes, those are probably something to do with ships. Where it says Norfolk, it's funny, that's a county in England, but apparently it's a town in the USA. You have Suffolk to the west of it, where it should obviously be to the south of it. But yeah, that's a whole lot of city that disappears under the water, along with Hampton and Newport News. Even I've heard of Newport News. And what's Jamestown, wasn't? That was famous for something. Oh look, Wakefield. It's a service station on the A1. Waverley, railway station in Edinburgh. Windsor. Castle. Might be somewhere in London, not sure. And just up the river from there, the National Mall. That sounds like it might be considered important to someone. Just a thought, you know. And Arlington National Cemetery sounds quite of important. Anyway, it sounds kind of important. You know, national. Theodore Roosevelt, I remember that guy. Well, I don't remember him, I recognise his name. Got a bridge named after him, and that's going to be disappearing. This sounds, you know, it sounds like people might start caring about it. Oh, that funky shaped building southeast of Arlington National Cemetery, as though it's some kind of pagan ritual site, or what? And the mall. Why would you call something just the mall? No, it's a patch of grass. I thought a mall was a building. Anyway, whatever that is, it's gone. And, oh yeah, Baltimore. I've heard of Baltimore. Chris Rock said you couldn't take over Baltimore in 3 weeks. Well, apparently you can in 13 metres. Cause a sploosh. At least parts of it going to get taken over. Parts of it are gone. Look to the east, there are a couple of other things worth pointing out. This pattern, where it says Stanbrook, see the pattern of little minor roads? That indicates a residential area. That's a whole lot of residential area, all underwater. And in the northeast, top right of the image, Back River Wastewater Treatment Plant. Yeah, well, it ain't going to be treating the wastewater right well once it's underwater. You might want to do something about that. If most of Baltimore's wastewater is going into that wastewater treatment plant, and then the sea level rises and floods that wastewater treatment plant, and also a lot of Baltimore, that's going to be a biohazard. Continuing up the coast. This looks like it might be expensive. Just saying. That's probably going to be kind of expensive. That's a lot of bridges and tunnels and tower blocks and World Trade Centers and stuff. Meanwhile, across the Atlantic Ocean, England is not going to be coming to the rescue because England is going to have problems of its own. Going to be very, very busy saving Cambridge University. I don't know if anyone would want to bother saving Peterborough, but we will be trying to save Cambridge University. Maybe York. Maybe. And we can't expect our government to do anything about it because the UK government, which is pretty much where it says London in big black letters, underneath it says London in smaller grey letters, pretty much in between those two words is the official City of London with Westminster Palace and the Downing Street and all those places with offices where people get paid £250,000 a year to rip everyone else off. Are located just there, and they're going to be very busy, signing legislation that allows them to purchase the whole of Harrogate at £1 per square metre so that they can move there instead, because Harrogate's not going underwater. London is. That's Heathrow Airport in the west. You'll notice there are a few blue dots on Heathrow Airport. If the runways disappear underwater, that's going to be a bit of a problem. And then east of there, mainland Europe. Gets a bit smaller. That's the Netherlands, or it was. They might need to upgrade the dikes, the polder system, just a bit. Just raise them more than sea level is rising. Otherwise, the Netherlands ain't there anymore. Neither Calais, Dunkirk, Ostend, Brussels, Bremen in Germany, as in... Oh, that's not one. Bremen was something else. But Bremen, gone. Hamburg, seriously in trouble. And by the looks of things, Denmark getting cut off at the north. And of course, if we're talking about low-lying cities, Venice is a famous one. Venezia, northeastern Italy. That part of Italy becomes part of the Adriatic Sea. Quite a large part of Italy it is too. Then we have southeastern Mediterranean. We have the Nile Delta, which is where Egypt grows an awful lot of food. Or it grows the food on which an awful lot of people depend. Well, we're going to be able to once it's under salt water. Notice here the Suez Canal. That's squiggly text. I can zoom right in on the text, but it won't help. A Suez. It really is the Suez Canal. And this, in the centre there, is Al-Qahira, which we for some reason call Cairo. And all of that was the Nile Delta, and over here, Iskandariya, Alexandria, Library of. Yeah, not anymore. gone underwater. Then east of there, we have, let's see, Alfau, Abadan, Bosra, Al-Karna, Kalatsali, Alimara, and Nasiriyah. Sorry, I should zoom in on them so you know which ones I'm looking at. Oh, Al-Kuwait, you've probably heard of that one. Fao, Fasr, Abadan, Nasiriyah, Kirna. It wasn't Nasiriyah, you idiot. What the hell was that? Oh, Bosra. That one's Bosra. This is Kirna. This one is Nasiriyah. Kalat Saleh. Alimara. This is Samawa. It's Al-Qut. Sumar. Fasim. Najaf over there on the left. And of course the one with the circle around it, Baghdad. And west of it, Al-Fallujah up there. All gone. Along with southwestern Iran, which was the part over which they fought and, between them suffered millions of casualties. Then we jump all the way across to Bangladesh. Kolkata, that place where people keep ringing you, trying to get you to hand over all your bank details with scams. Probably also the home base of those people who spam, let's be honest, we all enjoyed this by having this and a link, or finally it's here and a link, or you know the ones. The ones who copy somebody else's avatar and then create a channel with WhatsApp or Telegram and a phone number in it and spam call me under everybody's comments on the channel of the actual owner of the avatar they've stolen. Those guys. They're probably all in an office in Kolkata. So no objection to Kolkata disappearing, but to the east of it is Bangladesh, which is another one of those major food exporters. Saudi Arabia, going to be very hungry without food from Bangladesh. Where have we been sending all our second-hand warplanes and weapon systems and stuff? Oh yeah. Oh, that's going to be exciting. Then we have from Bangladesh to Bangkok. That's the big city. Just there. That one. And quite a lot of land upriver from Bangkok. And over on the right there is a lake that has become part of the sea. Next image, that lake is at the top centre. That's Cambodia. Phnom Penh is the big one with the circle around it. And there is a river linking that lake to the Mekong that flows north when the Mekong's in flood and south when the Mekong's low, topping that lake up and then draining it every year. And that's going to stop because the sea is going to back the Mekong up way past where they join, up to the right there. And it's also going to consume the whole of South Vietnam. Again, that's quite a lot of people. Also North Vietnam, all the way up to Hanoi. Halong, as in Halong Bay to the right, and Hanoi, as in the capital, up there, and up the river to Viet Tri and a lot of other places. Again, quite a lot of people. And jumping back to the Americas, we have here the Amazon, the big river, which is going to back up quite a long way. Amazon turns salty, that is going to affect the biosphere, whether you're talking agriculture or wildlife, nature. Either way, it's going to be adversely affected by the river turning salty. Right. So all of that is 13 metres of sea level rise. Of course, the website doesn't stop there. The actual calculated number, as far as I recall, for how much sea level rise we could get if all of it melts, all the land-based ice melts, all the ice in the European Alps, the Dalmatian Alps, the Himalaya, the Andes, the Rockies, all the ice on Greenland and Iceland and Antarctica, the lot melts and runs down into the seas, isn't 13 metres or 15 metres, it's 63 metres. The website does not have 63 metres, but it does have 60 metres. And 60 metres will cut Scotland off. Well, it'll cut through Scotland. Edinburgh and Glasgow, and joining the two together. And it'll take out Stirling as well, which is a shame because Stirling has a lovely little university campus. It'll also, flood a few locks and ruin the ecology up there as well. I think wildlife will survive as long as we all die. Coming south a bit, northern England. You have Carlisle in the top left, and in fact the English-Scottish border just off the top. Gretna Green is just out of sight. Lake District in the top left. The most beautiful part, but can be kind of harsh. Yorkshire Dales in the centre, east of Sedberg. Hawes, Sethel, Pateley Bridge, Massam, Leyburn, Middleham, Richmond, but barely. Everything west of Richmond. North of Skipton and Ilkley, and Otley, that's the Yorkshire Dales. I have made many videos showing off the scenery there. And to the right, the North Yorkshire Moors, where I've made a few videos. Not all of them. I go as far as Kirby Moorside and north of there, and then east to the next valley and down that last time. And I got up to where I could see over that valley leading down to Whitby. So I've been somewhere up I think around the H of North. North Yorkshire Moors area becomes an island. South of it becomes an island. See, the rivers there currently drain into the Vale of Pickering, and then southwest, where it says Derwent, down past east of York and down into the Humber. So this bit northeast of York doesn't currently drain past Filey. Filey is going to back up, and it is going to back up, and they're going to meet at the eastern end. Oh, and Leeds gets flooded as well, which is going to be inconvenient for Rachel Oates if she's still living there at that point. York, of course, is gone, but then we already knew that. Ripon is also flooded by the sea, which makes me feel kind of sorry for the sea. And it's not just the north, it's the south as well. Cambridge, wrecked. Oxford, partially flooded. London, completely flooded. The whole south broken up. Southampton and Portsmouth gone. Most of the Isle of Wight gone. Salisbury gets split. And the people in the southwest wanting Devon and Cornwall to, declare independence, they very nearly get their wish granted by water. Because there aren't any road or rail links left. Unless there's a very minor road somewhere in there that can be widened. Pretty much only accessible by boat anyway after that. Also Welsh separatists from Chester in the north and from Bristol in the south, those rivers very nearly join up and cut Wales off. And of course Europe at plus 63 metres. Well, Denmark becomes just a few scattered tiny islands. The Netherlands are gone. Much of Belgium is gone. Much of it is still there. Quite a lot of Germany disappears, including Berlin. Poland gets chopped up. Latvia gets cut in half. Lithuania gets... I should have checked. Very nearly cut in half. Kaliningrad ceases to exist. Helsinki is about as far north as the data goes, so I can't really tell you about Norway, Sweden and Finland. You can see Stockholm's in trouble. What kind of name is Pskov? Bloody Russia. Can't even come up with names I can pronounce. Estonia kind of becomes an island and a mainland bit. That's kind of serious. France, of course, gets into trouble. Paris as well as France, because obviously ask any true French person, they'll tell you Paris isn't really French. Top of the the Eiffel Tower is like the White Cliffs of Dover, because from the top on a clear day you can see France. 63 metres also gives us some really interesting effects. This is the Black Sea. You might recognise it from recent news stories. You have the Mediterranean to the southwest. You have the Bosphorus, where the Black Sea drains past Istanbul, bottom left of here. The entire bottom of the image is Turkey. Then you have Europe to the west, and you have Ukraine to the north, and Georgia and Armenia and Azerbaijan and a few other places to the east. And of course much of the bottom of this image is actually occupied Armenia, not really Turkey. And that little island near the centre of the image is... Better make sure this image is on screen. Little island near the centre of the image is Crimea, part of Ukraine. And I'm not sure exactly how far north this image extends, but I'm pretty sure all of it is below 51.6 degrees north, where the ISS orbits. And the head of Roscosmos did say that the ISS doesn't fly over Russia, so you know none of this is Russian territory. So they don't need to worry. But if you look to the right, you can see from Rostov-on-Don if you prefer the English, the river has backed up so far that it has joined the back of another river draining to the southeast. What does this mean? It means that the Atlantic Ocean can go via the Med and the Black Sea, and the Sea of Azov there, which is in the top left now, into the Caspian. And where the Caspian has been shaded in at lower levels, it shouldn't really have been because it's not connected, but once it gets high enough to go through that channel, the Caspian basin fills up to join the rest of the oceans. And the Caspian gets high enough to go off to the east from its southeastern corner and refill the Aral Sea. So suddenly, all of what has for a long time been drying out and dying in the stands gets its seas back. That'll be fun. Okay. Jumping to the southern Mediterranean. That capital city in the top right is Tunis. That's Tunisia on the right side, and Algeria is the rest of it. And you can see Tunisia gets cut in half by the Med backing up across it into Algeria. So that's going to have implications. A little farther east from there we have Libya. And part of Libya gets cut off by the Med backing up across Libya into Egypt. That major city in the top left of the image, Benghazi. Might be familiar. Name might mean something to you. Some of you. And across here, what's that name? Candaria. Yeah, no prizes for guessing. Next image is the Nile Delta again, and the Suez Canal, and Cairo, and much of Egypt. In fact, that the Nile backs up out of Egypt at that point. And what's east of Egypt? Oh, this one's good, this one is. On the left, Haifa. Well, on the left is the Mediterranean. To the north, just a tiny bit of Lebanon. Northeast, Al-Hulan. northeast part of the image is Syria, Syria in Arabic. محافظة القنيطرة. القنيطرة? Not quite sure what that means. محافظة region, I guess. But what's محافظة? Oh, قنيطرة. Good grief. محافظة القنيطرة. Don't know. But there's Syria, and there's south of it is Jordan, Al-Urdun, Hashemite Kingdom of Irbid. And this little blue shape, centre of the screen now, that's Lake Galilee, or the Sea of Galilee to some people. Would be See in German, that being German for a lake. Easy mistake to make. And as you can see on the left side, with this much sea level rise, the sea floods all the way up from Haifa into that valley. And Lake Galilee goes from freshwater to salt. The Jordan River running south from it, Nahr al-Urdun, running Junuban from it, disappears into salt water. And of course that means the Dead Sea Valley is going to get filled up to match the oceans. How many people live in the Dead Sea Valley below 60 metres above current sea level? Probably quite a lot. Iraq again. And let's just make this really simple. That's Baghdad. Over there, to the west of it, Fallujah, and north of it, Bakuba. Yeah, that's going to matter. Bangladesh, or in fact, in this case, Nepal. Because yes, with this much sea level rise, way up here, Nepal gets a coast. To show how badly Bangkok and southern Vietnam and Phnom Penh are screwed, well, you can get them all into one image and show that Cambodia is now sort of the northern bit, which is a very narrow fringe attached to eastern Thailand and a peninsula, and then an eastern bit cut off from the northern bit by a river backing up, and a southwestern bit which is its own peninsula sticking off the southeastern remains of Thailand, which are almost cut off as well. That's major impact. Then there's China. And I can't read Chinese, so I can't tell you which city is which. But I can tell you that the peninsula to the right, the east of China, is Korea, and the two capital cities marked there, with the circle around the dot, are Pyongyang and Seoul, and they've both been shaded in blue, so that's going to be a problem. That's kind of weird. I could have sworn there was something between those two. Ah, there is. I seem to have forgotten to increment the numbers. While we're looking at China, let's move just a little to the east and look at Japan. The city in the eastern part of this image, on the west side of that bay, is Tokyo. Was Tokyo. It's gone. And so Osaka, or Kyoto, west of it, is gone as well. And the other one, west off the image, is also gone, because Japan is a very narrow fringe of places it's suitable for large-scale building between a lot of mountains and the sea. I wonder why I numbered it 40, maybe it should be 50. Swinging back across from Japan, we can take a moment, going west rather than carrying on across the Pacific, we can just take a moment to acknowledge that Africa is, as usual, getting shafted. West Africa certainly is. Senegal, the Gambia, Guinea-Bissau, Guinea, Sierra Leone. Yeah, not anymore. Not really. Sierra Leone is still there, but it's the inland, pretty part where nobody lives that's still there. And the whole of the Niger Delta, gone. Won't that be exciting? I really did fail to update the serial numbers on all these images. Right. Buenos Aires. Come across the Atlantic from Africa, you get to Buenos Aires. In this case, the sea has backed up all the way up to Asuncion, which is not even in Argentina. And the Amazon has backed up all the way into Colombia. Over there on the west side of the image, the Amazon has backed up all the way across Brazil into Colombia. Brazil is effectively cut in half. And then we can look at the north coast of South America, where you have French Guiana off to the right, Suriname, Guyana and Venezuela. And so, considering that the vast majority of most of their populations are coastal, they're all shafted. And then north into Central America. Bit of an ecological disaster going on here. Lago de Nicaragua is no longer Nicaragua Lake. It's now part of the new Panama Canal without the canal. You don't need Panama anymore because ships can navigate Rio San Juan and, the lake and out into the Pacific there instead. No locks. What does that mean? It means that species can swim back and forth between the two oceans as well. And no, Ted Cruz, you can't run away to Cancun to get away from this one. And that brings us back to the USA. We can check up on New Orleans. How is New Orleans doing? Well, Memphis is now coastal. Memphis, Tennessee. Does that tell you how well New Orleans, Louisiana is doing? Just east of Memphis, we have Tuscaloosa, Alabama, and Montgomery, Alabama, which are also getting wet now, but Birmingham is still a baking hot hellhole with 120% humidity most days, I think is a good description. Yeah, the Gulf of Mexico gets that far inland. And that has got me back to Mar-a-Lago, which means I have skipped this one. I've skipped the East Coast. There we go. East Coast. Everywhere from Greensboro, Durham, Raleigh, North Carolina, up to New York and maybe whatever's the next one over from New York. Massachusetts, maybe? Not sure. Oh no, Massachusetts has an east-facing coast, doesn't it? What's the east next one from New York? Maine. Anyway, the East Coast, quite a lot of it's gone, including Baltimore. Well, much of Baltimore. Yes, Philadelphia's gone as well, just in case anyone was wondering about Philadelphia. Yeah, Philadelphia's gone. And then we have a map I rotated. What happens to New York? Well, if you follow the river from New York far enough up, you get to Montreal because you meet the sea backing up from the north, coming the other way. That's Albany, New York on the left, Montreal, Canada to the right. And yes, you could drive a boat or paddle a canoe directly between them without having to go through any locks anymore, because the two will be connected. They should be sharing a coastline. Direct. You don't have to go around the outside. And then we can finish with places like the Turks and Caicos Islands, the Cayman Islands, Georgetown, quite a lot of Cuba, you know, places that are just completely gone.